Teenager Quinn Brenner is a young, energetic girl who has many dreams, one of which is to become a superstar actress. Unfortunately, she faces a sudden setback as her mother passes away. The young girl's life becomes barren, as she loves her mother greatly and feels her absence daily. A year has gone by, and Quinn is still unable to follow her dreams consistently and with focus, as she deeply misses the support of her mother. She always gets upset when she recalls the fond childhood memories she made with her mother. However, one day when Quinn is in her bed, she feels that she is hearing her mother calling her. She tries to follow where the voice is coming from, but isn't able to figure it out. This strange occurrence now makes Quinn contact the spirit of her mother, and to do this, she contacts the most famous demonologist in town, Elise. The next day, she wakes up early in the morning. She is currently living with her father and younger brother in a small apartment. After waking up, she finishes her breakfast, quickly gets ready, and with high hopes to meet her mother, she departs for Elise's home. Soon, Elise finds the young girl in front of her doorstep. The young girl introduces herself and tells her story, requesting her help to contact her mother, as she isn't able to get over her loss. Elise wants to help this poor girl, but she has now taken retirement from her profession as a demonologist. Quinn gets utterly disappointed when she hears this heartbreaking news, as her hopes to meet her mother's spirit scatter away. She insists on Elise's help, and Elise, after getting emotional, agrees to the teenager's request. Quinn is excited, and Elise now starts her process to communicate with the spirit. As soon as the process starts, Elise hears a scary demonic voice warning her to stop, or else it will slaughter her. Elise, with a sudden demonic encounter, ends her process immediately and strictly warns Quinn not to contact her mother, giving her some very important information. She tells her that when she tries to communicate with the spirit, she sends signals so that the spirit can know that someone from this state is calling it. But other spirits present in the purgatory state can also catch these signals, and if they are demonic, they can possess the human body and can practice most violent or brutal crimes. Therefore, Quinn shouldn't try to contact her mother, and should focus on her future ahead. Quinn is a little scared and extremely frustrated. She returns home and finds out that she has been called for an acting demo in a theater nearby. With high hopes, she sleeps peacefully. Little does she know that this might be the last time she gets the opportunity to sleep this well. The next morning, she gets up early and quickly gets ready and does some rehearsals. After doing her rehearsals, she is about to leave her house, but her father gets in her way, frustrated with Quinn. He shouts at Quinn that instead of wasting her time, she should take care of him and should help his younger brother so that she can tutor him. Quinn is in a hurry, and she doesn't listen to her father, rushing off to the theater. She starts practicing for her audition in full swing. However, during the practice, something odd happens. She sees a black shadowy figure waving its hands at her from far away. Quinn finds this strange. She looks around and no one else is giving attention to the shadow. Therefore, she ignores it too and concentrates on the practice. Her turn for the audition comes, and to her bad luck, she isn't able to perform well in front of the judges and is sadly rejected for a low-level performance. Quinn gets distressed as her dream isn't fulfilled. Seeing Quinn crying, her friend comes up to her and calms her, and gives her the motivation that she shouldn't give up, and one day she will be able to achieve her dream. This makes her feel better, and her friend tells her to wait as she brings her car, and then they will leave together. While waiting, Quinn sees that same shadowy figure at the end of the street waving at her. Quinn feels a little afraid, but walks towards it to see why it is annoying her again and again. A tragic event takes place. Quinn's friend doesn't realize that Quinn is walking on the street, therefore, she knocks her over, severely injuring Quinn. Her friend screams in fear, and Quinn is rushed to the hospital so that her life can be saved. Quinn finds herself in another realm alone. She sees that she is in her apartment, and no one is around her. She is feeling afraid and starts to walk, and suddenly feels something in front of her. She sees that same man and gets terrified. She suddenly opens her eyes and finds herself in the middle of surgery. The doctors are confused, as they haven't ever seen a patient waking up in the middle of surgery. This is unusual, as Quinn has multiple injuries on her body. However, they continue to operate, and Quinn's legs are badly injured, and she won't be able to walk for a few weeks. An old couple, Harry and Grace, come to visit Quinn. Grace can contact spirits, and she has a frightening revelation for Quinn. She reveals that she hears a demonic spirit called the Man Who Can't Breathe, saying her name. Quinn ignores all this, as she doesn't want to take any stress and is discharged from the hospital soon after. Stuck in her home with her father, Sean, and brother, Alex, the paranormal events with Quinn start here. Her father gives her a bell that Quinn can ring, and the sound will catch her father and brother's attention. One night while Quinn is sleeping, the bell starts to ring without stopping, making everyone jump out of their beds. Quinn didn't ring it. Therefore, the family assume that the bell is broken. Perhaps the most chilling moment for Quinn is that, on another night, she hears a knock on the wall which connects her room with her neighbor, Hector. She thinks that Hector is playing with her. Therefore, she knocks back, and the wall is again knocked from the other side. She texts Hector, but to her shock, Hector tells her that he is out of town with his grandmother. The question arises, who is knocking from the other side of the wall? This question sends a shiver down her nerves. She pretends that it is nothing but her subconscious, turns the light off, and tries to sleep, but from above the ceiling, a hand comes and grabs her. Quinn screams and looks up, seeing the broken ceiling. Quinn finds herself in a terrifying situation because of the increasingly disturbing paranormal phenomena. She feels a growing sense of unease and fear as she witnesses visions of a dark spirit wearing an oxygen mask, known as the Man Who Can't Breathe. The same man Grace mentioned earlier. The presence of this figure triggers haunting memories of the accident that scares her. Quinn's heart races with a mix of dread and recognition as she realizes the connection between the spirit and her own traumatic experience. In the middle of these unsettling events, Sean meets Grace's husband, Harry, and delivers the heartbreaking news of Grace's passing. Overwhelmed with sorrow, Quinn's emotions intensify, weighing heavily upon her. Elise sees a nightmare about Quinn and wakes up trembling. She notes down Quinn's name in her notebook, and she senses that Quinn is in trouble and she should help her. Hence, in the middle of the night, she starts her process of contacting the spirits. During the process, she hears a breathing sound and immediately senses that it is demonic. These sounds are actually from the same devil, the Man Who Can't Breathe. She comes back from the further realm and sees black footprints on her floor. Elise gathers up the courage to follow these black footsteps and sees that these footprints are leading to the basement. She walks down the stairs, reaches the end point of the basement, and sees the footprints going up the wall. She moves her torch up and sees the Man Who Can't Breathe hanging there. She freaks out and the devil attacks her. She somehow gets herself out of this horrifying situation, runs upstairs and locks the basement door, and decides she will never contact spirits again. Meanwhile, Quinn tells the whole story to her friend, who says these things are nothing but bogus, and it was a nightmare. Quinn reluctantly accepts that it may have been a nightmare, and to divert her attention, she calls her friend. In between the conversation, her friend says something chilling to Quinn. She asks Quinn about the man standing behind her. The terrifying thing is that Quinn is alone in the room. She disconnects the call. She looks around the room and sees a terrifying view, as the Man Who Can't Breathe is standing behind the window and slowly approaching her. She tries to help herself in this predicament, but suddenly the man falls. Quinn, trembling, looks down as the man starts to grab her, pulling her from above the bed and throws her off the bed while she screams. Sean hears the rumbling and screaming sound and rushes to her room to find Quinn on the ground. He picks her up, calms her, and lays her down on her bed. The next day, Quinn is resting peacefully when another paranormal occurrence takes place. She suddenly hears the sounds of footsteps from the apartment above, which is unoccupied. Quinn is already afraid and doesn't want to see another glimpse of the devil. Thus, she spreads the blanket over her. The room gets as silent as a rock. Out of curiosity, she puts down her blanket and wishes she hadn't. She finds herself in a whole other place, in front of flat 514. She cries for help as she desperately wants to get out of there. She moves her wheelchair as fast as she can, in hopes of finding a way out, but she is unable to. She sees the Man Who Can't Breathe right beside her. Quinn is panicking, and he takes her to a room and throws her in there. Quinn, unable to absorb the situation, sees that a girl is crawling toward her, and that girl is none other than herself, but in a demonic state. She screams, and her father comes and sees her on the ground. He picks her up, and Quinn comes back into the real world. She immediately shows her the black footsteps on the ground, and she and her father follow them up, which takes them to the window. Quinn glimpses down to look, and finds the Man Who Can't Breathe hanging. He pulls her down, and Quinn is about to fall from the window. Her father pulls her back up. Sean is now starting to believe in these paranormal activities, and decides he will do his best to protect his daughter from the Man Who Can't Breathe. Sean contacts Elise and goes to her home, pleading to help his daughter. Elise mentions that she has left the field, but eventually agrees. She goes to their residence and starts her process. She contacts the spirit and goes into a purgatory state. Elise hesitates when she recalls her past encounters with the dark spiritual realm, where she encountered the Black Bride, the spirit who wanted to take hold of Josh of the Lambert family. The spirits attack Elise, who still can't get over her fears. Elise somehow fights her way out, comes back into the real world, but only claims she won't be doing this work again. Sean tries to convince her not to leave, and she hesitates, further overwhelming her with nervousness. The haunting presence of the malevolent spirit known as the Black Bride lingers in her memories, causing a deep-seated fear to grip her heart. She is reluctant to venture back into that dangerous domain. However, her friend and former colleague, Carl, manages to build up her confidence. He reminds her of the triumph she achieved in the case involving Josh Lambert back in 1986, and emphasizes that her strength surpasses that of the spirits, since she still walks among the living. Despite threats, a flicker of determination ignites within Elise as she contemplates the possibility of using her spiritual abilities once more. When Elise initially refuses to help, Alex suggests that Sean should reach out to self-proclaimed demonologists, Specs and Tucker, who have gained an online following. During their investigation, Quinn briefly falls under the possession of the Man Who Can't Breathe and launches an attack on Sean, Specs, and Tucker. Sean realizes that Specs and Tucker are nothing more than imposters and considers kicking them out. However, just in time, Elise makes her return. She quickly grasps the dark spirit's sinister motive to lure victims into the further realm, where their life can be devoured. Determined to confront this malevolent entity, Elise decides to venture into the spiritual realm and enlists the reluctant aid of Specs and Tucker. Elise calms Sean and tells him the whole story. She tells Sean that the spirits in the purgatory state look for dozens of ways to come into the human world, and one way is to possess the human body. She tells him that the Man Who Can't Breathe has taken Quinn's desire to meet her mother, and when Quinn was hit by the car, he possessed half of her soul, and now plans to take full control of her so that he can practice his satanic desires through Quinn. To get Quinn's soul back, she is going into a purgatory state, which can be a danger, but if she is successful, Quinn will be back to normal again. She starts her process and enters into the further realm. She walks a little bit when a young girl's soul approaches Elise. She tells her how that demonic soul convinced her to commit and now has kept her as his slave. Elise asks her where she will find the man who can't breathe, and the girl tells her the path to follow. Elise sees Jack, her beloved husband's soul, who comes to her and talks. They talk for a little while, but then Jack makes a strange demand. Jack's unsettling words fill the air, urging Elise towards a devastating decision to take her be reunited with him. A mix of sorrow and confusion washes over Elise as she grapples with the weight of his manipulative appeal. However, a sudden realization goes through the emotional haze. Jack is not who he seems to be. The revelation strikes Elise like a bolt of lightning, igniting a surge of determination and protective instinct. With unwavering realization, she confronts the truth. Jack is nothing more than a deceptive spirit assumed by the insidious man who can't breathe. Bracing herself against fear and uncertainty, Elise commands the dark spirit to release its hold on Quinn and attacks the man with the same knife he gave to her to commit. Suddenly, a glimmer of hope emerges as Quinn is revealed from the shadows, the feeling of relief flooding her heart, entwined with the lingering sense of trepidation that still hangs in the air. Elise sees that Quinn's half-face isn't visible, which is because the man who can't breathe has taken control of half of the body. Elise grabs the half-body and runs towards the point from where they would exit the further realm. They reach the point, and Elise comes back to the real world only to see to her shock that Quinn is in still the same condition as before. This shocks her, as she thought she had brought Quinn back, but then she realizes that the other half of the body is still in the devil's hand. And if Quinn wants to come back to this world, she will need to defeat Satan herself, which is an immense task for Quinn. Despite Quinn's vulnerability, a glimmer of hope shines through as Elise receives a message from the Spirit of Grace, who was a neighbor of Quinn. The message reveals that Lily, Quinn's sister, left a letter for her to read before graduating high school, a letter that Quinn never discovered. In a moment of desperation, Elise calls out to Lily's spirit for assistance. To everyone's surprise, Lily materializes within the ethereal realm. A surge of relief washes over Quinn's heart as she realizes she is not alone in this difficult journey. With Lily's unwavering support, Quinn finds the strength to confront the man who can't breathe. Empowered by Lily's presence, a newfound determination takes hold of Quinn, inspiring her to gather herself up and remove the spirit's mask. In a climactic struggle, Quinn bravely pulls off the mask, seemingly suffocating and obliterating the demonic entity. A mix of happiness and relief fills the air as Quinn emerges victorious, escaping the clutches of the further realm. The weight of supernatural activities lifts from their shoulders. Quinn comes back to the real world. The demonic possession has ended, and now she can live her life happily, just like any other individual. To make her more joyous, Elise tells Quinn that her mother's spirit is always at her back and won't let anything happen to her. Elise hires Specs and Tucker, as she plans to continue her paranormal investigation. She reaches home and lies on her bed to take some rest. She sees that her dog is barking at something, looking towards the dark. With a little worry, she looks deep in the dark, when a horrifying red-faced demon is standing at her back, leaving her to wonder if something hideous is about to take place.